Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udoak Amimo. Now, the relationship between the government and NGOs, or public but benefit organizations, has come under considerable strain recently. The law governing PBOs that was assented to in January of 2013 has not been implemented. In fact, amendments to that law contained in a separate bill caused an uproar and could be seen as the first crack at NGOs by the government. Well, the sponsor of that law was Sophia Abdi Noor, who is now the chair of the task force appointed to seek public views on the PBO Act. With her as our guest this morning is Wilson Kipkazi, the chair of the NGO Council. Also with me, the regular panel of Mutegi Njau of Royal Media Services and political analyst David McCauley. Good morning and welcome to Cheche. Ms. Noor, it's a pleasure to have you back with us. I'll start with you because, of course, you moved the original PBO law. Remind us why you felt the need to have it and why it hasn't been implemented.
Thank you so much. Remember, Woodwork, that I come from the background of civil society organization. And for over 20 years, I've been in the NGO world. So when I came to Parliament, it was
as a nominated MP.
As a nominated MP. And I came from a background where I felt the constituency that was the civil society organization had problems. We had the NGO council that had issues. We had several NGO council bodies. We had the civil society reference group that was emerging and regrouping themselves. We had all these things that were happening. And because of that, I felt I had a responsibility as a Kenyan first, and I had a responsibility as a person who was coming from that background. So I felt there was a need. Again, I became the chair of Labor and Social Welfare in Parliament, which the NGO again was under that docket for oversighting. So when I went out, interacted with my colleagues were telling me, Sophia, you are here, it is God-given opportunity, and we want you to now help us so that we can put our house in order. So I have interacted widely with many of them as I was going around the country. So the civil society reference group sat down, they drafted, they brought on board the NGO Council, the NGO Coordination Board, they brought everybody on board to look at some legislation. So we agreed, I was part of that team. So we agreed and we moved around the country in the whole regions, mobilizing the civil society organization. And everybody felt there was a need for legislation to replace the NGO Coordination Act, because there was, you know, they wanted accountability, transparency, good governance, all this, so that the problem that we were facing at different with the NGO sector could be now restructured, so that people now could account for the position, so that they could be responsible people, just the way, you know, we're asking accountability from the government. The civil society organization also wanted to be accountable. So they could be accountable to the people they're providing the services to, and they could be accounted to the government and the donors. So they wanted to be accountable to all the three bodies. And that's why the PBO, the Public Benefit Organization Bill, then I sponsored it myself. So
very quickly, PBO, NGOs, CSOs, you know, there are lots of acronyms we're using here. Is there a difference between public benefit organizations, civil society organizations, and NGOs?
Literally, the names may be different, but essentially, they're all the same. It is all charitable organization. Anybody who's doing charitable services comes under aid NGOs or what. But now, the name is Public Benefit Organizational, is what we are trying to call the group. And that group will fall under all the community-based organizations, trusts, foundations, NGOs, all charitable organizations that gives charity services to this country. So once that happened, and I was able to get a draft, the draft that I got from all the stakeholders or their opinions, then I went and took it to the legal department of the parliament, who looked at it and helped me with all the languages, the legal languages. So after that, I sponsored it. And once I sponsored the act, the bill, I got support from many people. Although it was late, it was at the end when we were about to finish the 10th parliament. We were going to the end, but I got support. And once I got the support, it was passed. Then the president assented to it on 14th of January 2013.
That was President Kibaki.
Yes. It is among the last piece of legislations that he assented to.
Okay, so why the contention at the moment? Why are you chairing this task force dealing with the very law that you moved through and had passed?
So once the law was passed, there was, in fact, immediately we were passing that day. In fact, the minister then had brought several amendments on the floor of the House. Then the minister was the Minister for National Heritage, Honorable Oletimama. He brought a lot of amendments on the floor of the House. Some were accepted and some we dropped them. And the NGO Coordination Board had also the amendments on the floor of the House. We had amendments from the NGO Council too. All those came to the floor of the House. Some of them were dropped and some were taken. So from that time, the debate did not stop. The debate continued, where the NGO Coordination Board had its amendment, the NGO Council had its amendment, the Ministry National Heritage continued with the amendments talking. So because of that, it was felt that we needed to relook at the NGO, the Public Benefit Organization Act, and we had amendment that came to the floor of the House twice. One time it came, and when it came, and the civil society organization and many people lobbied with me, I was able to go out, met with the leadership of Parliament, particularly the leader of majority, Honorable Aden Duale, and we were able to lobby, and they dropped at the last minute the amendments.
Can you tell us what are the contentious issues? What is that issue?
There are many issues. Issues of registration are issues that are contentious. Issues of accountability and transparent is another issue of contentious. Issue of national interest is another issue of contention.
What is national interest?
National interest, has a lot in national interest. In national interest, it starts from you and me, our security, and many other things. So those are the things that had in the amendment that we went and lobbied with the leadership of Parliament, and they dropped.
So at that point, these were the amendments contained in the Miscellaneous Act?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So because of that, after it was dropped, now the minister, the cabinet secretary for devolution and planning, decided that because of all this controversy, she wanted to put in place a team that is all-inclusive. That is the task force now, that is all-inclusive, to go out and get public opinion on the same. So what the membership...
Sorry, you're referencing Ms. Waiguru appointing your task force.
Yes.
But weren't there subsequent attempts to amend the PBO Act by a specific legislator following on from the Miscellaneous Act?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And Honorable Moses
Kuria.
And he, among others, among other things, suggested the capping of funding.
Yeah, that amendment is there, but it is not officially on the floor of the House.
Right.
What was officially on the floor of the House was the Miscellaneous Act, which was dropped. The proposed amendment by Honorable Moses Kuria is a proposal which has not gone to the floor of the House. So after that, Honorable Anne Waiguru decided that to form the task force. And the task force that was formed is an all-inclusive. We have a member representing the NGO Council, which is Honorable Kipkazi himself. Then we have a person representing the NGO Reference Group, Then we have a person who is representing the interreligious group. We have a person representing the women of this nation. So it is a diverse group. It's a membership of 11 people. And once we came into place, we had our terms of reference. Our terms of reference was very clear that we go out and sought for opinions, views of the people, and monitor how best, if at all, we get the proposals from Kenyans for amendments, how best those amendments can be put together, and how then the implementation of the act can be done. So we are supposed to put that into a report and advise the cabinet secretary on how best now she can address on the on the opinion on the Public Benefit Organization Act.
Are you not duplicating what you had done before? You said you had gone out of the country asking for opinions about the people. Now you're going back to the same thing, asking the same questions.
It is, you know, when we were going out, we were only meeting with the CSOs. Only CSOs. We did not go out to beneficiaries. We did not go out to the rest of the groups who are crying, like the NGO Council who had issues. We brought them at very late, and the amendment they brought on the floor of the House, some of them were dropped. You see? So we did not meet with other stakeholders apart from the NGOs themselves. So what we are doing now, we are meeting with all stakeholders, NGOs and beneficiaries who are getting services from these NGOs. We are meeting with even government officials if they decide. It's an open forum where we have been advertising, but even today in the papers.
I've seen it. Yes. I'm going to Mombasa.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just ask, you know, this sort of quite a confusing scenario here on what you're trying to do and what is the problem with the act. Maybe Kipkazi, just to bring you in, why is the NGO, the Public Benefits Organizations Act 2013, which was assented to in 2013, not being implemented? Why is it not enforced? And it's law.
Thank you, Mr. Magali, about the issue of PPO Act not implemented as it was. One is that the PPO Act has a clause for implementation. It must be operationalized by the cabinet secretary.
Yes.
That's
always every law
yes.
must be given operational date. Yeah.
Yes. Now, as you have heard, there was a lot of amendments. One of the reasons why this act got a lot of contention, both from government, it was not only NGO Council, it was from government, from faith-based organization, and many others. It's because from the onset, the act was done by one group called Civil Society Reference Group. And when we asked as a council to be included as part of the team that tries to make the law, actually they literally looked us and brought somebody who was not representing the council and purported to be the member of the NGO Council. That's one. Well, when we took our amendments, the last amendments that was taken.
But just to clarify on that civil society reference,
yes.
How was it composed and constituted, and who does it comprise? What does it comprise of?
It was one organization. It was actually one organization called PEN, Poverty Eradication Network, which was the lead team. And it was sponsored by a donor whom we are not
you seem not to agree with that.
Yeah, and for me, I don't want to. For now, I don't want to agree with him because, I come from that background, and I know the representation, the country-wide representation of civil society organization. The PEN might be the network, the coordination, at the top, but there were almost all NGOs were brought on board. And the last time when the act now came, when the bill came to my docket, I invited the NGO Council and the NGO Coordination Board to come on board and give us their opinions. And any opinion that I felt myself as the sponsor was good, to strengthen the document we borrowed from them.
Okay, the question
And
I ask
me
is, did
finalize
they
what
come
I
to the
was-
meeting you invited
Yes,
them to?
they
did.
did,
So
yes.
at some point they participated.
Yes.
You did not drive it as
I
NGO
have not
council,
reached there. I have not
but
reached there.
you
Yes,
participated
yes,
at a
I
later
have not
stage.
reached there.
Okay.
Allow me to
All right.
complete my discussion. Yeah, when when it was in the last stages, we came forcefully into the discussion of this act,
Yes.
and we were allowed. We presented our amendments, which our issues, which was incorporated. We accepted,
Yes.
and we moved on. I
Right.
think up to the last minute we didn't have any problem. Now, when the act came into force, us as council, we didn't have any problem. But immediately it came into force, then it was not operationalized. Now, some other interests came in now and wanted to do amendments before it's operationalized. With us as council, we didn't have any problem with that. And up to now, I can say
Other interests by, what do you mean by other interests?
other parties, including government, they had
Okay,
some
okay.
issues. They said it was not, including
Right,
issues of
okay.
security was
We've
not
gone over
addressed.
that.
Yes.
It's just when you say
Now,
other
wha-
interests, you seem
yes,
to be
yeah, yeah.
suggesting other...
So what happened is, to us, we didn't have a problem. But what we had a problem now, later on, is as council, is we were now trying to fight against the amendments which was being introduced. You remember when there was these amendments brought into parliament when Duale was there. So there was issues what was introduced, including the 15%. You remember the 15% was
Yes.
not in, it's not in the act. But in the process, the government brought in some amendments in 2013 that wanted to be included before it's operationalized. Now, that's where we came out strongly as NGO Council and said this is not acceptable. The 15%
So who
ceiling.
takes responsibility for the non-operationalization of the act? Is it
Yes.
the government that decided it will not go ahead,
Yes,
or the NGO council asked
it's
that
the
it be
government.
deferred?
It's the government.
Okay.
It's not us, because us, we didn't mind when the act was passed.
Yeah.
We were, it was in order to us. We
Right.
accepted it.
Mr. Kipkazi, for the benefit of our viewers, give us a sense of what the NGO Council does, because we've heard about the Civil Society Reference Group, we've heard about the NGO Council, which you chair, we've heard about the NGO Coordination Board. So just, give us a mapping of the landscape and what the different bodies do and how you intersect.
Okay, thank you. NGO Council is a statutory body
Statutory body.
registered through an act of parliament in 1990, and when the Coordination Act 1990, NGO Coordination Act was created, the council was created, and then the NGO Coordination Board was also created as a registering body. But the NGO Council is a self-regulating body that represents NGOs. We are actually supposed to be regulating NGOs as an independent body, independently. We also do capacity building for our organization. We link our members to donors. That's part of our work as council.
Okay. And how is that different than from the NGO Coordination Board? Because last year in December, we know that about 500 NGOs were deregistered or had some sort of trouble.
Yeah.
How does your work differ from theirs?
About the registration.
What does the
board.
NGO Coordination
The board is the
Board do?
government.
Yeah, what the coordination board do is to receive applications for NGO registration, process it, and give them certificates.
Okay.
And then annually they are supposed to be receiving returns. That's basically their work, and be able to.
In addition, they also
Regulator.
under their mandate is they also do monitoring services. They go out to monitor the regulatory body.
Okay, so that's government regulation,
yes.
and your one is
The
membership.
self-regulated.
But but the NGO council has a representative on the
Yes,
coordination
he is.
board.
He
That's
is.
where they come together, right?
Yes, actually we have about 7 members sitting in the board out of 11.
Yes, from the NGO council.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the contention. The question is, let's look at the contentious things that are arising from the act. Let's talk about the security concerns that the government wanted to bring in, and what were the implications of the amendment. What was the amendment about, and what was it to achieve, and what was the position of the NGO council
Yeah, the amendments that the government introduced on the
on security? Yeah.
Actually, they took a whole clause from the act and put it in the security bill, or the security act that they enacted.
The law, security laws
Security
amendment
laws.
act.
Yes.
Yes.
Basically, their work is to curtail the work of the NGOs at some level in terms of government interfering, trying to check what an NGO does and can be able to suspend and such things. And we were not happy about it as council, because when issues of security comes to the charitable institutions, we are aware many times they say NGOs are sponsoring terrorism acts.
Yes.
But to us, they have never come out clearly to tell us who are these NGOs. For instance, the one they mentioned the other day. And therefore, when they introduce the BPOs in the Security Act, it actually...
But isn't it true, my friend, that 1998, when the American embassy was bombed, the money that was... There are some NGOs, some Islamic NGOs, that were receiving money. And there was evidence that they got money, they recruited Al-Shabaab, or Al-Qaeda. That's
probably, yes, it could be there. We don't deny. But what happens, these are not our members in the first place. What they do is, people are...
Doesn't matter,
are
the NGOs.
Yes. They use the NGO coordination board to register their NGO, and they get their money through there. Where the problem is the monitoring issue that she has raised with the NGO board. The NGO board does not have the capacity to be able to monitor how the money comes to NGOs. And
but wouldn't that then explain why they draft a law to make it more difficult to register? That way you deter criminals and terrorists from passing themselves off as NGOs, as benign entities.
We agree.
Yes.
We agree that they have to deter criminals. But the way they did it was actually incriminating everybody. What we were saying is there are laws also that covers individuals. Now, if they cap everybody in that sector, then it's like trying to discriminate the whole charitable institution. And therefore, what we are saying is the systems also for security should be alert and should know who is doing what. Of course, like saying, putting a blanket law covering everybody, saying you should not get money because you think if Kenyans will be sponsoring terrorism. There are also the law agencies who are supposed to know what an individual, because the money comes through central bank, and when the money comes, and especially when it's huge amount, they usually find out who this money is and they know. But the issue is they have not been following also with them. So it's their issue. We cannot do the work that government is supposed to be doing.
So you mentioned that they're not your members. Some of the NGOs which you are struck of, we look at the ones that Fazul Mohammed listed last year, was it, or beginning of this year? None of those organizations was your member? Or since then, have you established if any of them was your member, and the veracity of those allegations, which don't seem to have gone far?
The law is very clear, Magali. Once you become a member or you register an NGO, you are supposed to become subscribed to the NGO Council. And when a member has not subscribed, doesn't mean he is not a member. You subscribe once and left. Of course, he is not a member at that
He's
moment.
a defaulted member.
Yes, a defaulted member.
Yeah.
And once he subscribes, he's a member. The real issue is, I think, members have not been subscribing previously, but now they are subscribing.
No, you're not getting the facts
I would
of my
like some
case.
clarity on your previous question.
I want to
on your
get
question,
clarity
David.
of those particular organizations. Obviously, when they were named,
yes,
it was in your interest and concern to figure out which are these NGOs that are being listed. Did you establish those particular ones who have been guilty of anything?
Yes.
And you've offered them support?
Yes, we did, and we had a negotiation with...
What did you find out? What
we found out is that the members, after registering their organization, they forget about the issue of returns.
Subscriptions and returns.
Including subscription and also submitting. They are supposed to pay 2,000 every time they submit annually to the NGO Coordination Board. Now, our members decided to abscond everything and went ahead to work.
Okay.
So some had not even done it up to 13 years. And they paid a lot of penalties to come back. Those organizations, we also agreed with the NGO Coordination Board that we negotiate for waiver for those NGOs who have not been receiving funding, so that they can be able to operationalize their NGOs.
Because the thing is, that's true. Failure to comply with the regulations on filing returns and subscriptions, annual subscription, is one thing. The charge that they were involved in criminal activities is what I'm trying to address. Did you find that they were culpable?
Good. That one we wanted to find out, but the government have refused completely to give us a list of those they are purported to be operating in clandestine activities like terrorism. Actually, they have not given us the list. In fact, even the embassies also asked for it, and they have not been able, because
there's
it's
nothing.
a security issue. There's nothing so far.
Okay, that's what the clarification I was seeking, because you accuse the government of trying to throw the baby out of the bathwater, that in terms of regulating and accusing, in this instance, for instance, or NGOs of, compromising security, you don't have the information. What law are they trying to bring in terms of how they govern NGOs? What is the law you're objecting to? What is the amendment?
The law was one, whether they wanted to bring is the issue of trying to limit NGOs from accessing certain amount of money from donors.
Okay,
like
that's the
say
15% cap.
Yes,
Okay.
that's one. The other one is they wanted also in the security bill, they wanted to bring clearly that an NGO can be suspended anytime they are suspected. So even when you are, so some of us, we clash with politicians all the time because we don't agree on issues. Yeah. And the moment you are in disagreement, they can brand you a terrorist or something, and your organization can be closed even for a year or 2 years.
Pending investigation.
Yeah. Yes, and those are what we didn't want to come in at that moment.
Okay, we have to take a break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. A government-appointed task force is collecting your views on the laws concerning NGOs, the wider Public Benefits Organizations Act. What do you think? Should the government regulate them, make them more accountable? Do SMS us your views on number 22422 or tweet us on @Cheche_TV.